Welcome. It's great to be with you all here at the Real Data Summit 2024. My name is Jane Ridge, and I'm a Senior Solutions Architect with AWS or Amazon Web Services. And I've been in the industry about 20 plus years at this point. And over that time, I've seen a lot of major evolutions from the internet coming on board and connecting us globally to the time when cloud computing was a disruptor. And now I'm seeing a time when AI is doing the same thing. So I'm looking forward to talking with you a bit about how we can chart our journey together on AI. So as we look at this journey, really, this is about you as a business navigating the sea of information, but also as an individual. No matter where you are, I'm here to help ensure you're preparing for what's next and how to get there. So let's get started. In my role as a solutions architect at AWS, I've had the ability to talk to companies from all industry backgrounds and all sizes and shapes. And they have a common question around how they can use AI to gain business advantage. A lot of them are seeing where FOMO is really a powerful motivator for them, or fear of missing out. But rushing into an AI implementation without a strategic plan can lead to costly missteps. So I like to watch a game show with my family. We call it We Are Family. And on there, the host, Anthony Anderson, he always calls out, you want to be fast, but you have to be correct to get this final answer to make sure that you win the show. And so when I think about this, the same applies to technology here today. You do want to be fast, but being correct and making sure you're going in the right direction is more important. I like to think about these businesses taking a journey like a traveler trying to reach a destination. It can be filled with twists and turns, and perhaps you didn't pack the right thing. But we're going to talk through what you can do to make sure you're on the right path. My customers, the data is their differentiator. You're probably seeing this today. Really, AI discussions, they tend to be data discussions in disguise. It's all about how we can commoditize your data, which is what sets you apart. We all have access to the same types of technology. So, how can you gain insights from what you have today or potentially unlock new business revenues from what you have? So I saw this title in an article and it caught my attention because so often I talk to customers and we're talking about which model to choose, how you can prepare your data. But the idea that really the most important AI model is the business model, I think resonates. This is something that I think a lot of people going on this journey tend to miss, that really making sure that business decisions and where you're looking to go are driving how you want to use the technology and not the other way around makes sense. So let's take a look at this journey that you're on and let's see where you are today. So the first place that people are, and I would put nobody in the category who's watching this because you're all here today learning, but is the staycation fan. So someone who likes to hear about wonders of the world or things going on, things like maybe seeing the Mona Lisa, but you're content to watch them from YouTube channels on your sofa. Companies that might be doing this aren't yet ready to embrace that this could be a valuable path for success. They might be hearing things but aren't convinced, what problems does this solve of theirs? Generally, I would say not the way to go. This presents risks, stagnation, FOMO continuing to build. Also, competitors taking advantages and having it hard to catch up as you get more and more behind. So this is not something I would recommend. Ultimately, how do you move forward? So being the advocate for change within your organization is going to be important. Remember, just like a family might not make the same decision, I really like to go to Florida and my husband prefers not to go and stay home. We have a bit of a difference of opinion and we compromise around that. You might have a business where different parts of the organization are going in different directions, and that's okay. You can still make progress forward. Also, individually, adopting a learn and be curious mentality. That's something that's just served me over my 20 years, that I'm always looking ahead, what's next, and peeking around corners, especially with technology and how quickly it's evolving. Now, 0 stars, would not recommend. So I would say everybody here, you're at least a committed adventurer. You're just by listening, you're trying to learn more about what options you have, just like a committed adventurer is dreaming about what's the vacation they're actively looking to take, looking at flights, maybe figuring out destinations that make sense, places they want to eat. Many companies are at this point. Basically, when you want to get started here, I would advise you to start working backwards from a problem. Something that I've seen customers that I've worked with is FOMO, if it's driving your decisions, can actually reverse this a bit. So sometimes customers might be saying, let's look at the technology first and then try to take a business problem and figure out how it could potentially solve that. I wouldn't advise that. Ultimately, it's better if you can take a business problem, figure out what you're trying to solve, and then figure out what technology complements it. Now, I will say AI, it solves a lot of problems. It doesn't solve all problems. So you might find problems that maybe have different solutions outside of this. But there are a lot of things that this can help you move forward with. Ask your teams what problems they have. What problems would they like to see solved or that could make them more efficient? When we look at maybe a good starting point, the people closest to the technology tend to be the ones who can tell you this is where we can make things more efficient. Also, building a culture of innovation is going to be important at this level. So I love this quote by Thomas Edison. He said, "I never once failed at making a light bulb, but I found out 99 ways not to make one." Do you have a team where they feel comfortable innovating, creating proof of concepts, and moving forward, and understanding that failures in those are actually lessons learned? This world is changing so fast from a technology perspective. So you need to be able to get people with their hands on the technology who could then advise you and think of ideas. I've actually conducted several builder fair workshops with my customers, and it's always amazing to me that once they, are able to see the art of the possible, it really starts to click, and then the teams really start to build upon where they could go next. You also want to make sure your teams are allowing different voices to be heard. Uh, are you just having the loudest person in the room talking, or are you getting inputs and various perspectives? Innovation is really going to be key at this point. Another call out as you move forward here, think about the quick wins and what that could look like for your organization. You want to have a success that you can build on. I was actually talking with a customer. We were discussing what their issues were, what some of the problems were that they would like to solve. And one thing that came to mind, they were saying their support services, they were spending about 50% of their time having to research issues that had already been solved. They had a common documentation library that had different support services and issues that had been found and then solutions for them, but the team was having to spend a lot of time combing through them and not able to have that time with the customer. If we could make that more efficient, that would immediately improve something that was a pain point to them and improve a customer experience. So we were able to take those documents, put them in a knowledge base with Amazon Bedrock, and ultimately they could start immediately taking advantage of looking up solutions, and the team was happy and they had learned something in the process. Another quick win area that we're seeing is code generation. This is an area where something like Amazon Code Whisperer, which is an AI coding companion, we're seeing results where previews, Amazon ran a productivity challenge, and participants who used Code Whisperer were 27% more likely to complete tasks successfully, and did so an average of 57% faster than those who did not use it. And finally, I'll just call out invest in upskilling. I've talked to organizations where they can find it hard to find a balance here. If you're invested in day-to-day operations or potentially fighting fires and more reactive, it can be hard to prioritize strategic upskilling for your team. But you need to look at it as something that will pay off long term. And if there are ways that you can find, how can we potentially pull in partners or consultants, something that allows the team to be able to focus on sharpening the pencil, so to speak. You'll find that if you can also do things like rewarding this within your culture, this can make it fun and exciting and ultimately will end up paying off. Remember, good intentions aren't enough, so having mechanisms around this is important. So let's look at the Avid Explorer. So if you're at this point, congratulations. This is amazing. You finally reached a destination. So now the question becomes, is this the right destination for your goals? If your goal was to see the Mona Lisa and you landed in Tokyo, then probably some adjustments need to be made. At this point, 1 in 5 organizations now has some generative AI solution in production. So if you're not yet here, just know that you're not necessarily behind. This is a great place to be, but customers who are not necessarily here, that's okay. You're ahead of the curve if you're at this point, but we're still early in the process. Measuring and adjusting is going to be key here. I'm calling out security just because this should be a priority regardless of your solution. You want to ensure that you're following best practices and that your teams are working closely within your security organization. The former CEO of AWS, he said you should expect the same level of security that you expect elsewhere. That's important. You don't want to cut corners when it comes to AI. You also should be looking at the foundation that you've built. This is something where you're looking at, have you set up best practices like least privilege, encryption? Do you have a framework of preventative and detective controls within your platform to ensure the reality of what it built matches what your standards are? I've talked to organizations where they might have one set of standards, but then the builders aren't necessarily aware of what those are. So making sure that those are hand in hand is going to be very important. You want to focus on performance and tuning at this point. Are you getting the right outcomes that you're expecting? Do you need to look at performance metrics, understand where bottlenecks are? That's going to involve making sure you have the right level of tooling and observability. Cost optimization is also going to be important here. So I've talked to customers who they've built a product, they're really excited about it. And then the conversation turns to, well, how do I understand how this is going to affect my downstream customers? Do you offer this as a premium? Is this something that is just built into your product? How are you looking to get a return on investment with what you've built and how that's upscaling your business? I would encourage you to have these conversations sooner rather than later. Even as you're looking to build out what that could look like, it's not too early to begin that conversation. So moving forward from here, we want to look at capturing our lessons learned. It's important to build a feedback loop at this point. So you don't want to just build something and then move on to the next thing. It's important to sit back and understand what went well. What maybe didn't go so well? What would we like to improve? And how can we turn around and build that into our next iteration? If you can build a feedback loop where you can understand what's going on from all parts of the organization and from your customers, making sure that you're getting that input as well, you need to understand so you can make sure you take that and incorporate into future products. Leaning into automation is also incredibly important here. I find that companies that don't have DevOps, that don't have operations that are modern and aren't leaning into automation, you're simply going to run into a scaling problem. This also presents risks from a security perspective and when you're leaning into those standardizations. So understanding what that looks like and making sure that you're prioritizing that is going to be clear, or you're going to be limiting where you can go from here. And look to gain better insights from the data that you have. At the end of the day, that's going to be your differentiator, as we discussed. So you want to make sure that you're able to figure out not only what we have today, but is the data in the right place at the right time? What kind of data do we have? Do we need to start consolidating it? Is there data that we're missing that maybe we need to start gathering? Having those conversations within your teams is going to be important at this phase of your journey. And finally, we're here. You're the travel guide. So if you're here, you've not only reached a destination, you've reached several. You have a well-worn path to success, and now you're looking to scale and to lead others. Organizations are going to be looking to you as an example, so it's important to know how to keep improving. A walking stick medallion, it's a badge that you can attach to your hiking staff. It shows where you've been. So wear that with pride and use this as a way to help grow your business. Here, you're really going to be thinking about scale. That's important. At AWS, we've built services that allow for performance and cost optimization, along with globally available and secure services. We remove barriers for you to scale that make sense for your business. Here, you also want to make sure that you're scaling across your organization, but also thinking, not only are we improving existing products, but how can we think differently? AWS has also partnered with Aerospike. So when you get to this point, understanding the scale of data and also being able to handle real-time data is going to be important. Making sure that you can handle low latency, cost optimized storage from a database perspective is going to be key. So Aerospike's real-time NoSQL data platform, it powers large-scale, ultra-low latency applications. Industry leaders such as the Trade Desk, Beeswax, and Integral Ad Science run petabyte scale real-time advertising workloads with Aerospike and AWS. Now, as you look to move forward, I want to call out the ethical use of AI and prioritizing this. Remember, you're a leader here, so setting an example for others is important. Ensuring you're not allowing biases to be introduced, understanding when to use AI is key. And that's where that feedback loop that you created earlier is also going to come into play. It will be valuable. You also want to look at outside collaboration and make sure that you're hearing voices that aren't just within one single silo. You want to make sure that policies that you have are updated to account for this new world. Are your security policies, do they make sense with what you've built today, or do they need to be changed? And finally, building a data strategy and understanding what kind of tools, data sources, and governance you need around that is going to be important. As a travel guide, there's nowhere to go from here but up, right? Well, actually, we know there's always something around the corner. You want to make sure you're preparing that by building out flywheels. You want to make sure it's combining the culture along with the right business drivers and your use cases as you prepare as a leader. As your journey evolves, you'll most likely be moving from a consumer to tuner provider level. Within AWS, this is our generative AI stack. At the top, you'll find Q integrated with Code Whisperer, with QuickSight, with Connect, and with Business. This is where you can have applications that leverage LLMs and other FMs. With Bedrock, we provide tools to build with LLMs and other FMs just by making simple API calls and trying different models depending on your use case. And then finally, if you get to the point where you are more of a tuner provider, we provide infrastructure for foundational model training and inference. Technology will continue to evolve. When I was young, my parents got a video disc player. We thought that was the height of technology. Then we moved to Betamax, VHS, and finally my parents just stopped with the Blu-ray. We're not now all in on streaming in my household, but they decided enough was enough. You want to make sure that you're building for the future. You want to lean into the experimentation, work backwards from your business problems, invest in your people, find the right data platform to scale and to perform, and make sure you're prioritizing governance and security as you move forward. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you have a great conference.